Shalom. Call Halaim La Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahushai Ba'Shem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And a sincere shalom to the 144,000 and 1/3. Now, today there is a massive, almost a 1% drop in the US dollar. And there's looming talks about a mass sell-off of U.S.-based assets like bonds, treasuries, of course, the DXY, the Dixie, which is the dollar, all right, the U.S. dollar. Now, I got a couple articles lined up, about two, and a little AI overview, so let's dive straight in. What would a fiscal crisis look like? The U.S. national debt is approaching record levels. Yeah, I mean, it's been at record levels for quite a while now, all right? As a share of GDP and currently stands at 100% of GDP, while interest costs are surging to new records and budget deficits remain elevated at around 6% of the GDP. Financial crisis. Reduced confidence in U.S. Treasury markets could lead to a spike in interest rates, panic among traders, devaluation of assets, freezing or slowing of credit, failure of key financial institutions. Inflation crisis. Attempts to manage debt levels through monetization, artificial low interest rates, or financial repression could result in high and potentially spiraling inflation, hyperinflation. And hyperinflation just means the value of the dollar goes down, all right, which makes everyday goods cost more. A good example of that is what gold is doing now. It just passed 5,000 and still climbing up. Austerity crisis. Sharp tax increases and spending cuts enacted to stave off a fiscal crisis could create undue hardship, undermine demand, and push the economy into recession. Currency crisis. The U.S. dollar could face sudden and significant depreciation in response to fiscal stress and policy response. And we're seeing all this happen now, and it's going to skyrocket to where the everyday American is pretty much cooked. You know, survival of the fittest, without rule of law, an extreme level of crime, cannibalism, so on and so forth. Default crisis. Policymakers could explicitly or implicitly default on debt, including by failing to make debt payments or by restructuring existing debt. Gradual crisis. Living standards and fiscal and monetary flexibility could gradually erode. Already happening. Now, everything listed is already happening, by the way, in response to rising debt, potentially causing as much or more long-term damage in an acute crisis. And all this leads to the MOTB, all right, which is the C-hip being incisioned, right, implanted through a needle or however they're going to use it, a gun, to shoot it up in your head and your arm, right? This is all what this is going into. These devils have been planning this out, going back, at least exposed, all right, verbally caught on video or documentation going back to what, 70s? I think that's the earliest it goes back. Of course, we got the scriptures, obviously, right? But in terms of these actual Edomites and whistleblowers, I think the 70s, as early as all this goes back to. Now let's get this right here. But before that, let's get this in all right, I'm gonna keep bringing this out over and over again like a broken record. This is Genesis 47:15. And when money failed in the land of Egypt. I stop right there. Because this place is Egypt, spiritual Egypt. And the Most High Yahweh said he's gonna plague Egypt like he did in the past. Let's get that. This is 2 Ezra 15:11. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm and smite Egypt with plagues as before and will destroy all the land thereof. And that's talking about Babylon the Great. Okay? This place is going to get plagued like the ancient Egypt, Mizraim, was plagued. And guess what? The money failing is a part of those plagues. And the money is going to continue to fail. IMF prepares for global run on US dollar. IMF comments add to narrative pressure on the US dollar and reinforce support for gold and non-USD reserve assets, though acknowledgement of enduring US market depth may limit near-term disorderly moves. IMF is modeling scenarios including a rapid sell-off of US dollar assets happening now already and is going to continue. Comments reflect rising unease over tariffs, Fed independence, and rule of law risk. US dollar has fallen sharply since Trump's return. Gold hit record highs. Long-term reserve diversification and BRICS de-dollarization cited. IMF says dollar dominance unlikely to end abruptly due to the U.S. market debt. Yeah, it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen next week's. It's going to take a while for everything to come full circle because you got the CBDC in the background, the stable coins in the background, the digital ID in the background, and then the end goal is to see-hip you, all right? And it's all unfolding like the elders and apostles, great millstone, Apostle Tahar on down has stated, okay? Because the Most High Yahweh has been supping with them on down, all right? And it's obvious if the Most High reveals it to you, I should say. So it's not so obvious. So Trump said today that the U.S. dollar, he doesn't care or something like that about what's been happening to the dollar, and it caused it to fall down more. So let's get this right here. This is Zephaniah 1:10. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith Yahweh, that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills. So the economy is going to collapse. All right. The U.S. economy is going to collapse. The world economy is going to collapse. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be all out savagery. All right. A cesspool of violence and death. And then they're going to bring in MOTB. So let's end this off right here. What would happen when the U.S. dollar is massively sold off? A massive sell-off of the U.S. dollar would likely trigger rapid devaluation, aka hyperinflation, causing severe inflation, skyrocketing import prices, and significantly reduced purchasing power for Americans, hyperinflation. This scenario could destabilize global financial markets, spike interest rates, trigger a crisis in U.S. Treasury markets, and potentially end the dollar's role as a primary global reserve currency. Soaring inflation and costs, financial market turmoil, reduced global standing, impact on asset and travel, flight to safety, economic disruption. There you go. The fallout could be similar to historical currency crises, acting gradually, then suddenly leaving the U.S. to navigate a fundamentally altered economic landscape. There you go. And this is coming. Now, when is it going to fully hit? We don't know. The U.S. dollar is like at 96, 97 right now. Maybe last year around this time, it was maybe at, I can actually check. Let me check. It dropped 0.8% just today. Let's check to see where the dollar's strength was exactly 1 year ago. All right, so 2025, January 2025. The dollar was at 110. So the dollar has dropped 17% or whatever. 16, 17 points in just a year. And if you zoom out on the chart, it's not that drastic of a drop compared to years and years and years ago. But nonetheless, okay, that is a severe, that is still a severe drop. And it's under Trump is not going to stop. So this is Revelation 6:6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, hyperinflation, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. So hyperinflation is on the table. This place is not just going to abruptly collapse. No, you're going to have hyperinflation, and then it's going to be a collapse. And it's going to affect the whole world, right? And with that, shalom.